What would you say has been the #1 obstacle that you've run into so far when growing your business? It can be directly related to being a woman in business. It doesn't have to be.
Time.
Time. Anyone else?
Yeah, I would definitely save time and money. I actually do this on, like, in my spare time. I have a full-time job downtown Austin, so the travel and just trying to keep that work-life balance, but also making sure that I'm happy with, you know, my creativity and everything like that, I think is probably like the biggest hurdle for me for right now.
Does anybody do what they have here full-time? You know? Wow, not me.
Okay.
I work here. Awesome. I can move on unless anybody wants to.
Yeah, so it didn't start out that way. So the first couple of years, I still did the full-time normal job and just did this on the side. But hopefully we all grow to where you can become full-time. I couldn't do it if I didn't have a great partner to help me or enable me to do that. So I'm very fortunate in that regard. But we all started out, for sure, just doing this as a side project.
Side hustles are important.
So one of my biggest, my biggest obstacle is delegation. And I don't delegate well because I can do it best, and I'm the #1, and you can't.
Yes,
And
Leslie.
so, so that's my biggest. That's the biggest hurdle that I'm overcoming this year.
I think the biggest hurdle for me when I think about from the start to now was underestimating myself. I didn't ever think, like at the very beginning of starting my jewelry line, that I would have a store, and I think that's why it took me so long to get there before I was like, oh wait, I can actually do this at this larger level. So I would say maybe myself was the biggest obstacle.
Yeah, I feel you. You can hold on to that. So, have you had any specific experiences in, like, so far in your business that you think are unique to women who run their own business? And if so, kind of how did you deal with that?
And we had a male card, like, printer who refused to print our cards anymore after we launched that card because he was offended by it. So, like, just
He
weird
sucks.
stuff like that. And they lost so much business because now that's, like, our best-selling card. But just, like, weird stuff. Like, you get pushback on emails and things that you wouldn't. I don't think if my name was, like, Dave, anyone would be like, are you sure?
An experience for me is fundraising. I've kind of started some of those conversations, and so an experience that I had was during South by. It was an event, and there was an investor that was talking to me and 2 of my male friends who also had startups. Like, we're really close, so I know their numbers, and I know that we're relatively in the same stage. When this investor said bye to them, he was like, here's my business card, would love to chat, blah, blah, blah. And they left literally like a minute before me. And then I was kind of standing there about to say bye to him, and he was like, hey, what's your Instagram? Like, I want to slide into your DMs, and like all of his stuff. And I was like appalled. And I was so, like, and that's just not something that a male would have had to deal with.
One thing that I guess for me could have been a negative, but then also is a positive, is I think because I have a company that revolves around empowering women and helping women, that a lot of times people want to, I mean, it's a cool topic right now. It's a cool thing to kind of cling to. So there's a lot of people that want to include me because of that. They're like, oh, here's a girl that we can bring in that will represent the women and will look good for us. And I kind of sometimes feel like I'm that token brand for them, and they're kind of using me for that space. But on the other hand, I'm like, well, fine. I'll go make money off of you guys and then go give it to my women's charities, and we all win. So, I mean, I think that if you, and sometimes I get a little pissed in my mind when I think about it that way, and I realize that they may be just using me to kind of get an in into my community that I'm a part of. But I also can see it as a positive because I can use that to be, you know, to further my goals.
All right, so I have a story. So I was shopping for a new okay, let me try to figure out how to talk again. A retail space, and my realtor was not understanding how I could make a living selling, you know, avocado and lightning bolt earrings, and and he asked me, oh, so what does your husband do? like that was gonna help him decide how much my budget would be, like he's paying for it. That made me a little bit upset, but I, was quick to tell him like, look, I'm, make enough money to fund this on my own. I don't like do this as a hobby and use my husband's money as allowance. Like, it's not like that. Don't think that. So that was something that definitely a man wouldn't have to worry about. Somebody asking what his wife does to see if he can afford whatever it is that he's trying to do.
Yeah, that guy has no style, obviously.
Exactly, yeah.
The worst. Over here with the hot takes. So, one of the things that I was really interested actually was from hearing from you guys is, was there like an incredible piece of advice that you got when you first started your company?
Well, I got some bad advice.
Yeah, I want the bad advice
Okay,
too.
so my mom told me to incorporate it in Delaware for some reason. That was dumb. But
They use based on corporate taxes.
well, yes, but you still have to be incorporated in the state that you're in. So I would have to be incorporated in Delaware and incorporated in Texas, and that didn't make any sense. Why would I have to pay for filings in both states? Anyway, so I think probably the best, perhaps money-saving advice that I got was to not operate as a sole proprietorship and either create an LLC or create an S corporation, and that way the profit that you make isn't taxed the same as if it were just regular income. That's very boring, I'm sorry.
That's really important.
Yeah.
So, not
Money.
boring.
All right.
One thing that stands out is I had a mentor of mine kind of sit me down, and because my 11 intently came out of grad school, and I had this moment where all of my professors literally sat me down one by one and asked me why I wasn't starting this. And one of the things she said to me was like, look, you being a minority, young and female is going to be one of your greatest strengths. It might feel like one of your greatest weaknesses, but it's going to be one of your greatest strengths because it sets you apart. And I will say, I remember looking at her and thinking that she's crazy because statistically that's not true, right? The case. But in the times that we live in now, I really do believe that women that have the courage to really step out and go for it, they shine, and there's a lot of incredible allies out there that are willing to lift you up, like this panel for instance, and you have so many more opportunities than the generations did before, and so that's something that I know for me in fighting my own imposter syndrome really empowered me to kind of like remember the things that set me apart, the things that are weird about me, are the things that will make you stand out and make you rise above the noise.
And so for me, as a product designer, I think the best advice that I've been given, always growing up, my dad was always like, go for it, try your best, research, and surround yourself with go-getters. Not necessarily surrounding yourself with people who are, had the highest degree or have this title about them. Always surround yourself with people who are going to support you and be behind you, and no matter what, whether it's Google or the person that's 5 years younger than you that has this amazing advice and this skill set to get it done, always make sure that you have the coolest and best team around you to get the job done and go after it, and don't second guess yourself. Always remember that you have the best idea no matter what. Fail, but then always stand back up again. And I think that's been an awesome transition into this position, and then also my company, because we are surrounding ourselves with really, really cool people, and that just want to get the job done and go do it.
So the best advice I've been given is to be patient and always stay in tune with your emotion, because being an entrepreneur, you're like this on a daily basis, and you could be like this every 30 minutes. And to be patient and to give yourself credit for what you're doing and the efforts that you're putting out, and just be patient.
Perfect. Yeah, I'm the worst at doing the, I did all this, but I could have done. Yeah, totally get that. So flipping that kind of to the other side is, what is the number one piece of advice you would give someone who has this creative outlet or has something they really want to go for and do and start their own company, or maybe take a very high level job somewhere? What would you tell them if they asked you for advice? Annie?
I'm still like a total baby at this. Like I just started full time in June. But I guess like what I've noticed is the more I like have my head up and I'm like looking around, I get really stressed out and I'm like, oh, I'm failing. I'm not doing this right. It's like what you're talking about with imposter syndrome. I compare myself to people on Instagram. And I think the main thing that I found that's good for like productivity is I just put your head down and work. Like ignore everyone else, like ignore what's going on, just like do what you think is logically best and like lay it out on paper and then just try your best to follow it. It's like not the greatest advice, but it's really worked for me.
Don't have imposter syndrome, that was great advice.
Yeah, that's good.
I'm terrible at giving advice.
I would say the best advice is to start right now. Like, don't wait, even if it's a really small thing. Like, when I started with an Airstream, and it seemed like a really dinky way to start. And I always wanted to have a full-blown store, but instead of waiting to have the money to have the store, I just bought the Airstream, started small. But like, if you want to have like a shoe boutique or whatever, like, take one pair of shoes that you really believe in and start doing pop-ups with them. Like, don't wait until you're at the point of your full long-term business plan, because that's like years down the road, and building a brand takes so much time. So just little tiny incremental steps are fine. Don't worry about being small.
Yeah, one thing that I've been really clinging to is failure is actually your first attempt in learning as an acronym. And just, I think sometimes in the starting process, like we're so terrified of failing when really doing is the only way you kind of overcome that. And it's okay if you mess up a little bit along the way. You're going to learn and you're going to grow from that. And so even last night I was at a panel, I didn't speak on it, but Micah May talked about that, how she made like $30,000 mistakes in her early on in her business, and she was like, yeah, but we were really committed to quality, and she was like, you betcha I never made that mistake ever again. And so that's something that's almost relieving, is that people don't expect you to be perfect, but just like really honest. So for her, she had some delays on her product, and she was really honest with her customers and said, hey, we messed up here, and I am committed to delivering the highest quality product to you, so it's going to take a couple more weeks. I'm so sorry. And they forgave her and were so gracious. And so I think that's something I would really want to instill in every female in here that wants to do that, is that you have freedom to fail, and like, you'll still be loved and accepted for all of that.
Something similar to what you guys touched on, a lot of you on this panel, not all of you, but most of you have companies that are very female-dominated industries, like clothing, accessories. I'm sure your podcast is mostly women, probably, maybe, I don't know, I'm making assumptions. How has that kind of influenced your business plan or your business decisions? Does it play into it? Do you find it more comfortable? I know a lot of my customers are women. Most of the people who do embroidery and things like that, the community we have on Instagram, I love every day just connecting with like hundreds of people who are doing the same thing I am and have completely different lives. So I'm just curious what that experience has been like for you guys.
Yeah, I'm in an interesting intersection because I'm in tech, so that's very male dominant, but all of our users or our audience is primarily female. Like 70% of our 50K followers on Instagram are female. So it's been an interesting balancing both, because I'm in a male dominant industry where I do need to rely on, there's a lot of male leaders that could get me to the next level, where I have to explain to them why it's important, why we know our audience and all that. But then on our audience side, we very much talk to the heart of females. And so to answer your question on how has that been for us, I feel like it's been a really interesting tension, because I've had to speak to both audiences. I haven't had the luxury to just be like, I get to speak to the female that does X, Y, and Z. We've had to kind of be more conscious on both genders.
So with Pack Party, we design a lot of our products, for women, for ourselves, and things like that. And I think it is comfortable for us, because a lot of our customers, we get to see them on Instagram. It's a great platform for us. Some days it's crazier than others because it becomes like a customer service. People are like, oh my gosh, how can we work with you? How can we collaborate? And instead of going, straight to like that contact email, it goes into Instagram, but which is awesome because we get to see direct feedback. So we just launched a new holiday light cup this week and we sold out in 30 minutes, which is awesome. So, then we have like customer service coming in through Instagram that's like, wait, but do you have another one? Like, where's your other one? And we're like, no, it's okay. Like, we actually have them at our pop-up and all these things. So it's an amazing way, going back to, just connecting with women, especially for us over Instagram and social media. And it's great to see their feedback that way because we do, like I said, create these products for women. There's a ton of confetti, there's a ton of pink, but also having different like drinkware and bags. So we're also, catering to the needs of women and gifting and things like that. So moral of this story was that our products are amazing for women and we love creating them for them. And Instagram is an awesome way to connect with them. So it's very comfortable for us, like working with women and then also men who like to gift to their women too.
So clearly, Tequila, we're not a woman-dominated industry very much. I don't even know the percentage, but it's got to be less than 5% of your spirits that are women-owned. But we have been able to take advantage of that to the extent where a lot of men have been in the industry for such a long time, and they are very kind in that they give us great advice. And that's the one thing Sheela and I always do, is we follow advice of people who clearly have been successful. One example, I randomly met Tito Beverage, and he gave us some advice, and by all means, I am following that advice. Clearly he knows what he did, but we've been very fortunate to meet a lot of great people. We've met twice as many not so great people, but following that good advice, as well as just staying focused on what we came to do, and reading who we talk to, as to some people wouldn't appreciate that it's a women-owned tequila, so we have to kind of read our audience, and sometimes we can play up that aspect, but other times we kind of just don't mention it. So you have to just constantly look at who you're talking to and learn to kind of read them a little bit.
My product's obviously just for women. It's jewelry made for women. And so I really enjoyed being able to create a store that's kind of like a safe place. People come in and talk to me about all kinds of things that you wouldn't normally talk about in a retail store, like fertility treatments and pregnancy and things like that, because they know it's just a bunch of women there and they can talk about whatever weird issues they want to talk about. So I feel super blessed to be able to surround myself with a bunch of women. It's like the best feeling ever to just be surrounded by all these girls that I'm friends with and also are my customers. It's pretty dope.
Well, I wanted to open it up to questions from the audience, if anybody wants to ask these lovely ladies anything. And then we have like an hour left to shop. I'll repeat it. So she asked, what do you guys feel has been your biggest business mistake so far? I think Annie has a story, and I want to hear it.
I've done this like 12 times. You're talking about like you make a mistake, oh, you won't make it again. No, unless you're me. It's like part of the imposter syndrome thing. I keep like not believing in myself enough, and I keep not buying things that I like the right amount of stock that I should be buying. So I recently signed up to start doing wholesale with this company online, and I was thinking that it'd be like, oh, just like a couple orders a month, and like the first day it was like more money than I'd ever made in like orders, and I didn't have any of the stock to fill it, and so it was me like emailing people and just like you said, like being honest and being like, okay, I don't have any of these products, so you have to wait 2 weeks. And so you think I would like learn from that, but I keep doing that, and even now with the holidays coming up, I'm like having to order things in like quantities of thousands, which I've never done before, but it leads to me like checking myself and being like, should I really be doing this? Like, what if all of a sudden no one likes us anymore? And you just have to like trust yourself, and that's really a lot harder than I thought it would be. Like,
my biggest challenge has been bookkeeping. I wish there were classes, I don't know if there are in Austin, for women on how to keep your books and do your finances and do your taxes and stuff like that. It continues to be like the crux of my business to this day. I avoid it at all costs. I don't know if anyone has any advice.
Yeah, Etsy does everything for me. It's lovely.
I eventually just hired someone, so I'm like, I can't do it, and I failed.
Find someone and it's still a challenge.
I can recommend someone to you.
My biggest mistake was I spent about 8 years of my time in business underpricing my stuff, which I didn't realize until, I actually sat down with an accountant and he was like, oh, yeah, you're not really making any money and this is why. And I was like, ugh.
Don't tell me that.
So yeah, know your worth,
Yeah.
and check in on that. It's always changing, your price should be constantly changing. If you're growing, it's probably gonna be going up every year, so.
And it's so uncomfortable to do that.
Yeah, you're always scared, like, oh my God, people are gonna notice this went up $4, but like, they're not. And if they do, they're gonna be happy. They're gonna wanna support you, and they're gonna be like, we understand, you're growing. We wanna pay that $4 or whatever, however much it is.
So I was gonna say about the accounting. Is this on? Okay, yes.
Yeah.
So I was using spreadsheets and like calling people for their phone number and then running it manually through Square for a long time. And then I finally was like, man, I gotta figure out how to use QuickBooks. So I found somebody who happened to be a woman, and she came over and we worked together for maybe 3 months, and I paid her to teach me how to use QuickBooks. I did not realize that you could just hire somebody to do it, but actually I'm really grateful to know exactly how to use the program, to know how to receive materials. And when you make stuff with raw materials and you have to put things together, it's very hard to keep track of like, oh, how much red do I have? Do I have enough chain to make 50 of these necklaces? And so having that accounting software really helps with inventory management. It helps with collecting. One time I went, I think, 6 months without realizing somebody owed me $1,000. So I was like looking in my little reminders and I was like, hey, this, invoice is way past due. And I was like, oh no, I called them and got my money. So accounting is, actually I really enjoy it now. So I would love to sit down with you. Show you these QuickBooks if you want.
A good spreadsheet though.
Yeah.
I remember my mistake. I'm very impulsive, and so I'm learning to plan ahead, and so my impulsive decisions have cost me thousands and thousands of dollars because I'm like, oh my God, this is a brilliant idea, and I produce it, and I'm like, well, hold on, how am I going to like campaign and advertise it? I'm like, oh, I didn't think about that part. I just thought about the product and wanting to produce it and make it, and so I'm learning to plan.
This is maybe not my biggest one, but it's a funny one that comes to mind. So we launched our beta like during or right after South by, and I had someone else on my team draft the email, and I just like trusted her and didn't really look at it, but I should have. And the email, it said, we're launching in 24, it was supposed to say hours, and it said years. And so I had so many people email me. It was like, oh, I think this is a typo. So we did it was really funny. We laughed, and I was like, you know what? I can't be mad about this. I'm so exhausted. South by just ended. So we just sent another email and was like, just kidding. It's lucky for you. It's just 24 hours.
And wanted to make sure you were paying attention.
Yeah, and it ended up, people laughed and like loved it, but that was.
I feel like in 24 years though, you need to do something. Any other questions from the audience? Yes, Ashley?
How do you get comfortable creating space and taking care of yourself?
So Ashley asked, how do you get comfortable creating space?
So I feel like I kind of have a unique situation because I do have a full-time job and also do this in my spare time. I'm a list maker, so check those bad boys off. It's really a good sense of accomplishment when you can kind of like strike through and then you just kind of move on. So I prioritize things that I feel like I could get done quickly but may have a big impact on my business, but definitely I think also surrounding yourself with people who boost you up. So people who aren't always complaining about, you're not spending enough time with me, or like, why are you focusing on your business and not me? So just making sure that you have a good support system. My husband kind of just goes and plays video games while I do my lollipop stuff in the kitchen.
Mine too.
Yeah.
Not lollipop stuff, but yeah.
And then just kind of multitasking. I try to print labels while the lollipops are hardening, stuff like that. So I just try to really utilize my time because I don't have a lot of time to make these lollipops. But yeah, just I think surrounding yourself with people and then just really staying organized is a huge key.
So,
Go ahead, Amanda.
okay. I was just gonna say, you know, with working, it's like, I've been doing this a long time, and you know, sometimes I'm like, I have to live my life. I have to go do something else. Like, this was my hobby, but now it's my job, so now I need something else to be a hobby. But and I have 2 kids, so they need attention. So these days, I'm done when they're out of school, and I go get them, and then that's the end of the day. And my employees take care of stuff, and if they can't, then I'm still available by Skype. So I don't completely turn my phone off ever, but they can more or less handle anything. But sometimes I think about, like, oh, when I'm 80, will it matter if I didn't get that order out a day early? And then if it doesn't matter, then, you know, I would have rather, you know, would I rather have more time with my kids, or would I rather have gotten more orders out? So that's what I kind of try to think about, like, in the future. Like, will it matter today? How much will it matter? Anyway, that helps me get my priorities in order, and especially with self-care.
Yeah, so I've had to do a lot of reworking in my brain about self-care and what it means. Like, growing up, I think just the way my mom worked and provided, I felt like she viewed self-care as very selfish, and that carried over for me. But I realized that the people in my life, my business will only, or my relationship with people in my life will only thrive if I'm thriving. And so I have like a few things for me, like working out is one of them, and meditation is another. Like, there are things that if I let slip, everything else will slowly start to slip. So those are things on my check off list every day that I get really excited to check off if I do. And just like rewiring my brain to like on prioritizing those things that I realize my version of self-care is not that crazy. Like, there are people that spend hundreds of dollars a month on like extensions and eyelash extensions and nails and like all of these things, and as a business owner, I don't do any of that. Like, my version of self-care is working out and meditating, and so like that is 100% okay and so good and so healthy. And so knowing that if I'm falling apart, my business is going to fall apart, and so are my relationships and things I care about. And so rewiring that and thinking, actually, the more selfish thing to do is not take care of myself, not take responsibility of me needing to take care of me.
Yeah, I would just say one of the best pieces of advice I ever got was I have a tendency to catastrophize things. So I'm like, oh, if I take that sick day, the world will end, right? Or like, I'm gonna die. Like, my mind immediately goes to like a very non-realistic worst case scenario. One of the best pieces of advice I got was to actually think, like, what is the actual worst case scenario, right? Because it's usually not nearly as bad as you're making it out to be. And that has helped a ton, because I had a tendency to always just go off the deep end of like, no, but then this won't work, and then this one, and then the world ends, right? And like, that's not realistic. And that's definitely helpful. But I'll go on.
For me, with self-care and stuff, I like love to work because I love to draw, and so that's basically what I do at work is draw and do like all those fun things all day. So when I first started working, I would, you know, work from the 9 to 5, and then I would go home and keep working, and I would come in the next day and be like, oh my gosh, look what I have to show you, and it would end up being like not that great, or like we couldn't use it because I worked like almost too hard on it that it became like just a malfunction. So what I've learned is
I want to see some of those drawings.
They turn out frightening, but in my head, because I've worked so long, I'm like, this is the most amazing thing. I'm like Picasso right now. Like, this is awesome. So all in all, what I learned over, you know, the past few years is creating like a boundary when I go home, because I would go home and I would like work on my couch and I would work from my bed, and slowly but surely nobody knew I was doing that. And then I slowly told my mom and my dad, like, oh, they're like, call me at whatever o'clock at night. They're like, what are you doing? I'm like, working. They're like, it sounds like you're in bed. And I was like, yeah, I am. They're like, that's like your like holy place. Like, you need to sleep when you go to bed. So slowly but surely
not only creating boundaries for like time, but I created boundaries for space. So my bed was only for sleeping, my couch was only for watching TV. I set up like a strict desk if I needed to get things done. And then I also have like a space where I have like my own art that I can do, so I can like, if I am in a weird headspace, I can go draw for 5 minutes and then go back to work. So I know that like time is a huge boundary, but I also think it's really important to get your space in order. That way you can still have a clear mindset no matter like what you're doing in life.
Yeah, I have a craft room that I allow to look like a tornado went through it, and it makes me feel better. Not for everyone.
I think it's like really a bad like mental idea that we get that as small business owners we've got to work so hard and we're going to be hustling and we're going to be there. You're just going to be there working all the time, and that's the way it is, and that's what it means to be a hustler. That's what it means to be a small business owner. But like I realized, like I used to do that. Like when I first opened my store, I was like, I'm gonna work 12 straight days. I'm gonna cut payroll. I'm gonna be there all the time. I'm gonna save money. And like in the end, I was just a crappy person, like a crappy leader. The quality of my work suffered. My heart wasn't in it. Like all these things. Like if you like buy into that mentality that I say this as I'm about to go back to the studio tonight, but this is a rare day. But if you don't like set those guidelines, you're just not an effective business owner. Like if you don't make your life into a real life where you have a balance between being a person and being a business owner, and you set those boundaries and stick to them, you're gonna suck as a person and your life's gonna suck.
I think that's a good note to end on, actually. You're gonna suck as a person. Your life
Don't let that happen. Don't suck as a person. No.
Well, that's all the time we have for the panel, but I really appreciate everyone taking the time to be here and bringing all your amazing things, and now I get to finally go buy stuff. I'm ready. I've been thinking about it all day. Shots, yes, but yeah. So yeah, thank you so much, guys. Y'all go